if you are going to grow your business, you're going to have to get other people involved. And it's way cheaper to go ahead and have that system and process mapped out now than waiting to do it after you've got that person on payroll.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. This is Alex Pardo. We're diving into episode 752, where I have a masterclass with a new friend of mine, Phil Duke Jr., who was a one-time part-time realtor turned into a full-time top producer, quickly realized that he had built a job for himself and hadn't really built a business. How many of you guys can relate to that? But ultimately decided to end up starting a brokerage, and today has over 160 agents, which he does not have to manage because he's empowered the right leaders to manage over 160 agents across 10 locations and over 6 states. So guys, on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about how do you gain clarity about what it is you want? And if you're not clear on what you want, how do you discover what it is you don't want that ultimately leads you to what you do want? We talk about the importance of systems and processes and creating playbooks in your business, and exactly how Phil did that so that he can now do the things that fill him up, coaching, speaking, writing, investing, all the things that really lights him up while his business continues to run and operate without him. So really, really enjoyed this conversation. I know you guys are going to get a lot out of it. But hey, before we dive into episode 752, the Storage Wins coaching community is growing with the right people, and it is exciting. I absolutely love sharing what an awesome asset class self-storage is and how it could lead to not just more cash flow, building wealth, but ultimately time freedom. So if you guys want the playbook on how to do that from start to finish, and do it with a community of people that are all striving to achieve and accomplish and purchase their first cash flowing storage facility within the next 6 to 12 months, head over to www.storagewins.com, storagewins.com. Just take a few minutes to apply. And if I like what you have to say, I'll reach out, we'll schedule a call and go from there. So with that being said, guys, let's hop into today's masterclass on the Flip Empire Show. Phil, welcome to the Flip Empire Show, brother. Thank you for being on, man. I'm really looking forward to introducing you to the audience and getting into this conversation.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. And I hope we can, give some value to the folks that are watching or listening to this thing. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, just to give the audience some context, and then we're going to dive kind of right into the heart of today's podcast. We'll kind of skip over the intro part because you guys heard some of that in the intro section of the show. But Phil and I actually, full transparency, we have not known each other all that long. I want to say, Phil, you and I probably connected on a Zoom call talking about storage a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, if that. And guys, it's rare that I have somebody on the show that I haven't built a relationship with, or that hasn't been a strong recommendation or referral from somebody in my network that I trust and respect. And the reason I had Phil on is because we instantly connected. First, we're both, God-fearing men of faith. And we just really vibed on the way we look at life and entrepreneurship. And we both have a servant's heart, wanting to genuinely give back and help people. Obviously, we share an interest in storage, and we just had a lot of commonalities. And as I was speaking to him, I realized that, Phil, one thing, man, when you've been in business for a while, you kind of get to like cut through the clutter. When you talk to people, you kind of know like, all right, this person's the real deal, or maybe not so much. Maybe they're just kind of like, talking the talk, but not necessarily walking it. And yeah, man, I just had a really good gut with you. And I wanted to introduce you to the audience, have you on the show, because I have no doubt that you can share a lot of wisdom and provide a lot of value. And so that's what we're always aiming for here on the show, man. So again, welcome and thank you for being on, brother. So with that being said, and I touched on this in the intro, but just to kind of set the stage for everybody, Phil is somebody who has been in business for a while, has started a brokerage, and we're going to kind of get into not so much why he started the brokerage, but some of the things he's learned, lessons learned, trials, etc. But he manages over 160 agents. And actually, that's not even correct, because he's got leaders. He's empowered the right people to manage these agents. And he's got this brokerage across 10 locations in 6 states. And as a result of building the business the right way, he now has the opportunity to focus on the things that he loves, aside from his family, of course, coaching, speaking, writing, things of that nature. Phil's also somebody who has served our country. So I salute you, brother. Thank you so much for your service. So with that being said, man, I want to kind of now shut up and bring you into the conversation, but I'm going to start with a really broad question up in the sky, and then we'll kind of like start to zoom in. But like, when you reflect, Phil, on your entrepreneurial journey, right? When it comes to starting businesses, growing teams, hiring, firing, training, leading, what would you say it boils down to, like the biggest lesson you've learned? Like, let's start with the end in mind, and then we'll start to kind of reverse engineer how you got there. But what would you say is the biggest lesson you have learned when you look back at when you first started a business all the way up to where you are today, which is obviously very different place you're today?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all the kind words. I got a lot to live up to now. But I would say, like, as you were asking that, and I was sitting here thinking about it, and we talked about it a little bit before we hit record, but, I think two things. I think clarity is one, but I also think I can remember being a fairly new real estate agent. At that time, it was just me all by myself. Maybe I had an assistant at that point. I can't really exactly remember when this conversation occurred, but I remember going to breakfast one morning with a local insurance agent who I barely knew, but we had a lot in common. And everybody's like, "Oh man, yeah, you gotta meet this guy." And we ended up connecting at a networking event, and we followed that up with a breakfast. And I'd never met this guy before, and here I was. At that time, I was wearing suits and ties every day. I was going out to try to find a seller to sell their house, or a buyer to help find them, a house for them to buy. And I was selling a lot of houses, and I was, winning awards and all this kind of stuff. And I really honestly had kind of gotten a little bit cocky about it. Like, hey, I've made this, like I'm out here doing all this work, and all these other
Yeah.
people aren't willing to do this work. And I remember he asked me at that breakfast table that morning. He said, "Man, you're crushing it. You're doing a great job. I appreciate, meeting with you, but I want to leave you with this question." And the question was, "What is your definition of success?"
Hmm.
And that I had to think a long time to come up with an answer. I couldn't on the spot. Like, what does success actually look like? What does it feel like? Um, who would I say is a successful person? So I think, like, having your definition of success is like, first and foremost, what would we consider a win in our business? Because I see a lot of people, selling a lot of whatever they do, acquiring a bunch of,
Yep.
a bunch of units, a bunch of doors, but their quality of life is not very good. They can't take a vacation and be relaxing. They can't sit at the dinner table. They're physically there with their family, but they're mentally not there with their family. And so I would just say, like, for everybody out there listening or watching, really think about, what does success look like for you? And the
Yeah.
best definition I could come up with, that I didn't even come up with it, but
Fire away, because I want to share with you the one that I recently heard from one of my
okay.
coaches. So go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, I met with a guy who's my pastor now. He was my childhood pastor. He got into real estate in the last 10 years, and we actually worked at the same company for a little while. And I asked him that question because he was always been, a close friend and a spiritual mentor. And he gave me the best definition I've ever heard.
Talk to me.
And he said, at the end of the day, I want my family to think of me as the most godly man they know.
Wow.
He said, if I have shared Jesus with them and they think of me as being the most godly man in their lives, then I've won. Outside of how many houses I sell, how much money I have, what kind of vehicle we drive, what kind of neighborhood I live in, like, that is my number one goal. And that really, really shook me to the core to realize, like, hey, there might be other ways to be successful than just going around every day wearing this suit and selling all these houses. And, like, maybe there's more to life than just going out there and selling houses and making a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what kind of started my journey. But I'm eager to hear the one that you heard as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to kind of take you through an evolution of how my definition has changed throughout the years. And let me kind of riff on this for a minute or two, because I don't know, this is, I don't know, 750 something episodes in the show. Chances are I may have touched on this in the past. I just can't recall. But before I kind of share with you what a coach of mine recently told me was his definition of success, which I've been kind of chewing on for a bit. Years ago, Phil, when I was, an ambitious young teenager getting into college and then graduating, getting into corporate finance, and then starting a business at 25. If you would have asked me back then, I would have probably defaulted to say something around money. At that stage of my life, I probably would have said, "Oh, being a millionaire is the definition of success." How stupid and naive was I, not knowing back then that money is just a tool to enhance obviously certain things, but it's just one aspect of it. Like, how can you might be successful as far as like the amount of money you earn and wealth and all that, but like if you're successful there, but you've sacrificed everything else, to me, you're the ultimate failure, right? And you can reverse that. You might be successful in one area of your life, but if you can't provide for your family, and the reverse is true. And then fast forward, as I started to kind of get in my entrepreneurial journey, and I realized that I really had an appetite and a hunger to impact people's lives, I would have probably defined success as as cliche and corny as it might sound. I probably would have defaulted to some quote depending. Success would be, have I left the world a better place, or like, how many lives have I impacted? And I remember at one point coming up with a mission statement of, I want to impact thousands of lives and this and that. And it looks great on a wall and on a poster, but like, was that really my definition of success? Coach of mine recently said, and I pulled it up here in Evernote because when he said it, I wrote it down. He said, the definition of success is the internal comparison to your ideals. Wealth is the inverse. Wealth is an external comparison to others. So what I got from that, whether you agree with that or not, is that he's looking at success internally. Like, by default, I cannot say I am more successful than you, and you cannot say you're more successful than me, because it's an internal measure. And that's what I really took away, that I've been just reflecting on and chewing. And I really like, success is the internal comparison to your ideals. Now, with that being said, and this is going to seem like I'm piggybacking on yours, but you and I both share the same faith, right? And we're both believers. And if this turns people off that are not, then that's perfectly fine by me. And hopefully people can stay plugged in. But I was having a conversation with somebody in my kind of spiritual network, right? And we were talking about parenting, and I said, Phil, I said, man, at one point, success was happiness to me. And I've quickly learned that happiness is momentary. Like, happiness can be here today and gone tomorrow. Joy and fulfillment, I think, is much more lasting. But if we really, really want to go deeper, if at the end of the day, you stripped everything away, have I introduced my children and my family to God, right? And have I taught them to have a relationship with God? And have they been saved? Have they connected with God? Like, at the end of the day, man, as I think about it, like, if you took away everything, and I died knowing that, like, hey, my children, my family, they have a connection, a relationship with God that is like meaningful, like a real relationship, not like surface level. Dude, I think I could go happy. I think I could go with a smile on my face. Like, if nothing else, right? I left nothing. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I'm striving for more, obviously, right? As an entrepreneur, like, we want to create things. We want to contribute. We want to do a lot of things. But man, when you boil it down, another reason you and I connect so well, because our definitions are somewhat similar. And I'm still crafting mine, but it's along the same vein of yours, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I believe we were designed to have a purpose and to go to work and produce. And like, I think part of the mental health crisis in our country right now is that so many people are just sitting home collecting checks that they didn't have to work for. And, I just don't think that's the way most of us were designed to live. And I think on the flip side of that, on the entrepreneur side, I think a lot of people that are new to that journey think, man, success would be sitting on a beach and, a margarita in my hand and just, just relaxing and all this kind of stuff. That, to me, that's fun for a day or two. But I go to the beach and like I come up with new ideas and I can't wait to come back home to implement them. I feel like, we were designed to work and to serve other people. And so, the definition of success was number one. And then number two, the question you asked would be like getting clarity on what it is that you're going to do.
Mm.
If you work really, really hard and you hit your goals, but they're the wrong goals, then you may find that you worked for 6 months or 6 years or 20 years on the wrong thing.
Yeah, man.
So I think taking some time to reflect, taking some time to get in the right rooms, to read the right books, talk to the right people, explore things deeper than just what's my next move or what's my next 2 moves. Like, what are your next 3 moves, your next 4 moves, your next 5 moves? There's actually a really good book out there called Your Next 5 Moves or The Next 5 Moves, something like that.
Patrick Bet David, I think it was, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. And so I would say, when I was younger, I would kind of see something or I would hear something for the first time. And it was just like, boom, I heard it. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
As I've gotten a little bit more mature in my business journey, I've thought, hey, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to make some notes on it and I'm going to spend some time exploring that. Really how hard is this going to be? How much time is there going to be involved? Is this really going to give me the lifestyle that I really want? Who do I know that's already done this that I could go pay to be in their course or buy their book or go to their conference? There's a lot of times where I explore something and I meet somebody who's doing it and I think, man, that's what I want to do. And I meet them and they kind of tell me the real truth of it. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that or not.
Yeah.
So I think having clarity about what you're working towards, you can work incredibly hard and, harder than most people if you have an end goal in mind.
Yeah.
And so having that clarity to me has given me the energy to keep going and keep going and keep going, knowing that I'm working towards something bigger.
Yeah. A two-part question, which you can answer. You can kind of combine the answers if you want, but the question revolves around for people listening to this that are struggling to get that clarity. Maybe they can't figure out their why or why they were put on this earth. What's their purpose, right? There's a ton of resources and books out there. So the two-part question is, one, how would you recommend or advise that anybody struggling to gain clarity about what they truly want and what were they designed for? How would you recommend them going about figuring out that piece? Because it's so important, it's foundational. And the second part of it is, are there any resources, whether it's books or videos or whatever, that you would say kind of align with what you would advise in that domain?
Yeah, I would say it's hard for me. Like I'm much more of I react based on pain. I think more people are kind of on that. Some people go after pleasure. More people, I think, kind of run away from the painful things. So
I think entrepreneurs are, generally speaking, are probably more wired to want to avoid the pain than to seek the pleasure. I don't know about, I'm going to say this and then I'll kick it back to you. But if you asked me, somebody asked me recently, I don't know, a couple months ago, would you rather triumph and win and crush, or would you rather avoid losing? I'd rather avoid losing. I'd rather avoid losing all day versus winning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, for me, what's always helped me is to figure out what I don't want.
Yeah,
so
man.
when I'm trying to get clarity, I start thinking about what's going on in my life or my business right now that I don't want in the future. So when I was growing my first real estate company, before we even opened number 2 or number 3, I realized I was taking all the phone calls from all the agents. I was the one coaching and training all of them. And even though I enjoyed that, I knew that I got out of selling real estate to not be grinding and always be on call and having to, hop on a Zoom call at night or review a contract real quick or bust out an offer. So I started thinking how do I design this thing to where I'm not the one getting the call? It's not that I can't answer the question or that I don't know the answer to the question. It's if I want for the next 10 years, do I want to be taking calls from agents that are having questions about a deal that they have going on? Or could I design this thing to where somebody else is in that seat and that is their job?
Yeah.
So I would think more about what do I not want life to look like? I'm an analytical person. I like to have things on my calendar. I don't really like the being on call 24/7 type relationships. I don't do well because I always think of a phone call comes in. I'm like, oh man, there's going to be a problem. Let me fix this problem. And I'm probably going to be able to fix it in 20 seconds. but but let me hop on here and stop what I'm doing. So I don't like those distractions. I don't like being on call. And, I spend a lot of time away from work.
Yeah.
I only work 3 days a week in the office. And sometimes even on those days, I mean, today we're going out on the lake. I hunt a lot in the winter and in the spring. So I have stuff going on with church. I need to have my business set up to where I'm not the bottleneck of it.
Yeah.
It's not that I can't do it. It's that the business would actually run better if I was not the one doing so many of these different things.
Yeah.
So I would start there. What do you not want your life to look like? Okay. Maybe it's you don't want to struggle to pay your bills every month. You don't want to struggle to know how much you're going to make next month as a salesman that might sell something this month and might have a slow month next month. And then as far as resources go, I mean, the best resources for me have been coaches and mentors.
Yeah.
Who you surround yourself with. I mean, there are people that I was in their coaching program years ago, and now we've become such good friends that like we text each other and we hop on. I was on a call right before this with a guy that I think is like a business genius, and having that friendship with him,
It's
I
invaluable.
know I can call him anytime. He can call me anytime.
Yeah.
So I think, those coaches that are out there, those mentors you have in your life, you should always have some people at your level, below your level that you're currently at, and above your level. And so I think those are, kind of who I lean on. And then as a believer, Jesus said, when you fast, fast like this. He said, when you pray, pray like this. He didn't say if you pray or if you fast. But when I've had big decisions to make in my business life, and I've had quite a few where I was at a roadblock, like, do I go left or do I go right here? I really don't know. Man, as a believer, I feel like a lot of that clarity has come directly from the Lord.
Yeah.
He is not the author of confusion. He wants you to know what
Oof.
to do. The author of confusion is the enemy.
That's right.
So us as believers, we have that we can tap into as well. And so, do it quietly. Don't post about it on social media. Don't let anybody know you're doing it. Just go and do it. Have some time to yourself. Turn the phone off. Check yourself into a hotel. Go to the lake and turn the phone off. Whatever you need to do. But those are things that have helped me in the past when I've had big decisions to make and trying to get that clarity.
Hey there, stop. I promised to get you back to the show, but let me ask you a couple of questions. Are you happy with the money that you're making in your real estate business? Are you generating any cash flow? Are you building wealth? Do you feel like you're making progress, or are you just constantly chasing deals and going after the next transaction and the next transaction? Well, I can tell you from personal experience that there's an easier way, and it's not with single family homes. I believe that self-storage is the best asset class in real estate, hands down, because we're not dealing with tenants, toilets, there's automation, it's a recession-resistant asset class, and it's a business that has the benefits of real estate. If what you're ultimately after is cash flow, building wealth, and time freedom, I want to invite you to just take a few minutes to apply. Go to www.storagewins.com, where you can learn more about our Storage Wins coaching program. And I can help you generate cash flow from your first storage facility within the next 6 to 12 months without needing to use your money or even needing any experience. So head over to www.storagewins.com. And if we like what you have to say, we'll schedule a call. And I look forward to connecting with you. Now back to the show. I'll share this because it's what I'm feeling right now, man. Whether you and I end up working together in storage or otherwise, like I feel like we'll build a relationship, man. We're so eye to eye on so many things. There's so much to unpack in everything you just shared. And I love that last piece right there. It reminds me of earlier this year. Was it late last year? Late last year, I was kind of at a crossroads too. I had been running a mastermind called Ascend with a friend of mine. We had been leading it for 4.5 years, and I had gotten so much joy and fulfillment from coaching and impacting and facilitating, being in that room. And in my heart, I felt like it had come time to kind of go in a different direction. I remember being conflicted with making that decision, and a spiritual mentor of mine told me, says, God brings peace and love. He doesn't bring confusion and chaos. And it's interesting that you said he's not the author of confusion, because that's pretty much what she told me. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's what she told me. And I said, I'm struggling with this decision. I'm conflicted. And she told me something interesting. She goes, make the decision, go to sleep. And if you wake up in the morning and you feel at peace, it's a decision most likely that is led by God versus if you're very conflicted, then spend some time in prayer, like lean in more. And I've really taken that to heart. Whenever I've had to make big decisions, it's like, do I feel peace about this? And when I finally made the call, weeks later, somebody asked me, like, do you regret it? How do you feel? I was turning off an income stream, and I'm like, man, I'm at peace. Kind of how I feel about the wholesaling business when I disconnected from that in 2020 and I transitioned into storage, and the market blew up after COVID. And, I see all my buddies from the wholesaling days, like crushing, right? Like earning 6-7 figures a year. And I'm like, dude, I don't miss it at all. I don't miss it at all. I feel at peace with the decision. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it won't make sense. Sometimes when you make those big decisions, it might not make sense to other people around you, but it's a decision for you. It made sense for you. And it's probably freed you up to take on other opportunities that would have not even been in your realm.
That's right.
If you were so busy trying to find your next wholesale deal.
That's right. That's right. You either win or you learn. There is no, like, if you view life and business from that lens, you win or you learn. How do you go wrong, man? How do you go wrong?
Yeah, I can remember when I decided to stop selling real estate. I was like top producer in my area, and my clients loved me. Actually, quite a bit of my past clients, they enjoyed the process so much that they got licensed and they work for me now. But I remember like a handful of people, like, if you're not going to be the one showing me the house, then I'm just going to use another agent. If you're not going to be the one with the sign in the yard, I'm just going to go with another company. And, it kind of stinks in the moment when that happens, but I had a much bigger goal, and I was not going to let 3 or 4 people that didn't want to work with me anymore in that way stop me from going forward with what I knew I was being called to do. So you'll always have people that kind of are that way a little bit, and you will kind of sometimes wonder what happened. But yeah, when you have that clarity about it, it's a great feeling to be at peace with it.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, no, I've loved this part of the conversation. I want to transition into, with the next 10 minutes or so that we have here. I want to transition into talking about the importance of systems, processes. It's interesting. I'm reading, if I can show it on the screen now, I'm reading, I don't know if you know Dan Martell, but he's got a book called Buy Back Your Time, which is phenomenal. I've probably dog-eared, I don't know how many pages. Yeah. And there's a section in here where he talks about building playbooks, which he uses the word playbooks, but essentially it's standard operating procedures and how you build a business that can grow and thrive without you. And at the heart of that is people and systems, right? Playbooks.
Yeah.
Talk about the importance that systems and processes, SOPs, playbooks, whatever you want to call it, have played in the success of you having a team of agents, 160 plus, 10 locations. You now get to hunt and do the things that fill you up, right? Go out on the lake, go on the boat, like hang out with family, speak, participate in church, all the things that fire you up. How are you able to do that? How have you been able to accomplish that? And what's the role that systems have played?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. And I talk about that in my book as well, Unstuck. And I give the example of the 5-star restaurant versus Chick-fil-A. So, the 5-star restaurant has a 5-star chef that's back there cooking. What happens if that guy leaves?
Yeah.
Right. You got to go find another one. How long is that going to take? Do you have to close down for that night? Do you have to close down for a week? Some of those restaurants have to close altogether when the guy that knows how to do the cooking, leaves unexpectedly. But you think about Chick-fil-A, they're taking teenagers off the street with no culinary degree, no cooking experience. And every Chick-fil-A I go to, the chicken tastes really good and it tastes about the same, right?
Yeah.
So I tell the joke all the time that I don't have a favorite cook at Chick-fil-A. They all cook it the same for the most part. And so if you're going to have a big business, and I think a big business is way easier to run than a small business, by the way, because you have more people and more people are able to help you. If you're going to have a big business, you're going to have a lot more customers. You've got to have systems and processes for people to follow and for you to train people on. If you join one of my locations, week 1, this is how we write contracts. This is the flow we go through from the time you write an offer and the offer gets accepted until closing day. It's all mapped out in checklists with timelines, and that's what we coach and train the agents on. So It's probably one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs to do because we're normally like go, 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 go all the time. We don't want to slow down and take the time to map out what's actually working for us. But when you do sit down and you map out what works for you, well, now you can bring somebody in, whether it's a VA or a part-time employee, an intern, a full-time person, a contractor, a W-2. And, in the beginning, I would hire people and I didn't really have, I can remember hiring my first recruiter. I didn't really have recruiting figured out at that point. I knew I needed a recruiter. I had too many things on my plate. I needed to constantly be bringing in 3 to 5 agents a month at my original location. And I kind of was having a little bit of success here and there. But when I hired him, I did not have like a process to follow. And I really kind of failed him by bringing him on and saying, I need you to go recruit, but I don't really have it figured out how I want you to do it. Like how many phone calls you need to make, how many text messages to send, how many appointments you should have this week, how many people should show up at our Monday morning mastermind as guests from other companies, because that was our number one way to recruit. I didn't have any of that kind of stuff figured out. So, I would say for anybody on here, if you are going to grow your business, you're going to have to get other people involved. And it's way cheaper to go ahead and have that system and process mapped out now than waiting to do it after you've got that person on payroll. Go ahead and spend a little bit of time during your day, during your weeks, during your months. It might be 30 minutes a week. You just put down in your calendar. We had it like, if you take a listing, here's the steps you need to take. We got to call the photographer on this day. We need to let the seller know the photographer's coming. We need to go make copies of the key. We need to put a lockbox up. We need to put a sign on there. We need to send the documents for them to sign. Just simple stuff that you would think, like, surely everybody could figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, you find out when you start hiring people, not everybody's as process oriented as maybe you are.
That's
and
right.
They need it. Like, just show me what to do, Phil, and I'll do it. When you have a system and process that's mapped out like that, it's very easy to show somebody, hey, this is your first listing. We've got this checklist. Let me train you how to follow this checklist. And then they say, oh, that's pretty easy. And then they're on autopilot for the next one and the next one. So it really becomes a time asset for you. You spend the time to develop it. You show somebody how to do it. And then hopefully they're on autopilot for the rest of the time that they're with you.
Anything that you do in your business more than once needs to be documented, codified, SOP. There's got to be a playbook around it. Otherwise, to your point, you're going to continue to invest that time and energy, and that's not well spent, right? Are you leveraging? I'm curious. What do your systems look like? I know you use the word checklist, and incidentally, I was recently recommended a resource for you guys out there. In full transparency, I have not read it yet, but I've heard amazing things about it. It's called the Checklist Manifesto: How to Get Things Right by Atul Gawande. Almost 14,000 reviews. So it's got to be legit. The Checklist Manifesto. In fact, I think Dan Martell in this book even references that book. So that's a book I'm going to be ordering and reading. What do your systems look like? Is it a combination of checklist, short videos? Like, how do you document and process everything that you guys do in your business?
Yeah. So the way I kind of differentiate between systems and processes. So the process is like the step-by-step, ingredients. It's like the recipe that I want people to follow. And the system is where I house that process. So our system for putting a new listing on the market, it could be on a piece of paper. It could be in an Excel spreadsheet. The process is going to be the same process, but ours are housed in a system that we use internally called BrokerMint. It's for real estate brokerages.
Okay.
And you put in like what day the property is going to hit the market, and it will automatically put in the dates of when the photographer needs to be called and when the sign needs to go up.
Love it.
And it puts those dates on the agent's calendar for them, so they don't even have to remember to go in and do it. So, so that's a system that we use inside the brokerage world. We also have that inside our CRM. How often to follow up with a new lead when it comes into the system. We created a follow-up sequence that goes out to, I think, 570 days. And literally all the agent has to do is log in, pull up their CRM, hit the calendar, and it'll say, I need to call this person to follow up with them today. This was a new lead. I'm still trying to contact them. I haven't had a conversation with them yet.
Yep.
And so it just makes it really, really easy for anybody to come in with a minimal amount of training and be able to follow the process that we have. But saying all that, if we found a better CRM that could house that process, we would just swap to a better CRM.
Yeah.
But our process would still remain the same process, even if it was housed inside of a different system. So hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, it did. And the only other thing that I'll piggyback, the mistake I made years ago in the wholesaling business when we were creating documents and videos and processes for everything, is that I would record a 37-minute video on like how to run comps, right? And then I realized that like when something changes or breaks in the process, now I got to re-record that. And number two, if somebody has a question about a specific thing, they got to pull up the SOP and they got to try to find and fast forward where in the video I cover that. What I then learned after hiring an EOS, we read the book Traction, hired an EOS implementer. What I quickly learned was that like I need, to me, my opinion, your videos for the things that you do need to be in small bite-sized chunks, 3 to 5, 3 to 7 minute videos. And so running comps might have 3 or 4 sub-little videos in it as an example. And then that fits into the greater like playbook for, how to analyze a deal. And that might go under the acquisitions playbook. And so you kind of build it from there. And then one thing that I love doing, dude, is I love to record a video and then send it to an assistant and say, hey, watch this video and create a checklist, create an SOP out of this, and just make sure that it's childlike, where if I gave it to my 9-year-old, she could pretty much follow along and for the most part do the task if possible. Right.
Yeah, we had that too. We created an online course. I created an online course for our agents that goes over like every document that is inside those checklists. Like if you're a listing agent and a seller hires you to sell their house for them, here's the documents you would need. And there's videos inside our online course for that specific, that one document. And it's about an 8-hour course. And when they come on with us, they've got to go through the 8-hour course. And then they have to do a skills test where they show us how to log into these things and how to fill out a contract and how to get it signed electronically before we'll turn their leads on for them, because we provide leads to our agents. And, and that greatly took a lot of questions away from me. I used to give those classes live in like 4 segments. And then it was like, well, if I just gave class 1 on Monday, but a new agent joins us on Tuesday, do I sit down with them and give them class number 1 one-on-one and then catch them up with the rest of the group?
Yeah.
When we finally took that online, that was my fault, by the way. I thought I had to give them live. When we moved it online and made it on demand that they could go to as much as they want, I had so many agents that stayed with us years and years and years because they said anytime I had a question about anything, I knew there was a video I could go to get that question asked. And it became a leadership thing for me. Like, I'm a big fan of the new 1-minute manager. When agents call me and ask me questions, I would never answer that question. I would say, well, what did your contract say? Or did you watch the video on that yet? And they're like, no. And we start to train them to, instead, before you call me first, go to the video. If you go to the video and you still have a question, then by all means, maybe I need to make a video for that if there's a question that's unanswered. But yeah, those kind of things can take a lot of time off your plate.
Yeah. And here's a nugget as we start to kind of wrap up the show, Phil. In this book, to give credit to Dan Martell, there's a section in there that he talks about the 1-3-1 principle. Have you ever heard this?
I have not.
So the 1-3-1 principle, and years ago I did a version of this, but I think he just crystallizes it that much better. So from a leadership perspective, he shares a story of how one of his first businesses he built where he was the solutions to all problems. And what he ended up doing is he ended up answering all the questions and solving all the problems. And what he ultimately created was a situation where like all of his employees and team members would naturally, what would they do? They would go to him whenever there was a problem. And imagine the stress that could create, like when you're constantly putting out fires.
Yeah.
And then he discovered and learned the 1-3-1 principle. So the 1-3-1 principle is essentially whenever a team member, an employee, you can do this with your kids even, right? Like anybody, like they come to you with a problem. The problem number one, is it needs to be clearly defined. Okay, let's clearly define what the challenge is. What's going on here? Then the person has to come up with 3 suggestions, 3 potential solutions that they've thought through. And then, so that's the one, that's the three. And then the one is, what is your recommendation based on those three potential solutions you came up with? And so now everything is based on the 1, 3. Whenever there's a problem that somebody comes to them, they come to them with, okay, here's the clearly defined problem. Here are 3 potential solutions. Here's my recommendation. Most of the time, he's like, run with it, go, right?
Yeah.
And so now he just flipped it. He flipped that situation on its head, which I love.
Yeah, you're creating a culture of problem solvers instead of a culture of 24/7 help desk. And I'll just call Phil when I have a question.
That's right.
Yeah, which is not scalable, right? You're the one thing in your business that's not scalable. So building that kind of culture is very important. That's very similar to the new 1 Minute Manager principles as well. So
for sure, brother, for sure. Well, hey man, last question before we get you out of here. But before we do that, I'm putting it on the screen here, man. But where can people reach out to you, man? People that want to maybe build a relationship, find out more about what's going on in your world. I know you mentioned you have a book. I think it's called Unstuck. So where can people reach out and connect?
yeah, I mean, you can go to my website, Phil Duke Jr., phildukejr.com, and there's some free stuff on there that you can get access to. I also do a free Zoom call every single Thursday. I mean, I am a speaker, I'm a coach, I own multiple businesses, but I enjoy helping other entrepreneurs who are feeling stuck, and I do that in multiple industries. I also have a group that we do a little bit of real estate investing stuff here as well. So yeah, I'm all over Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not very active on there. But if you go to my Facebook profile, you'll see a Zoom link somewhere, and that'll be a good spot to hop on, connect, get some free training, and then Q&A on there as well. And then the book is on Amazon. There's links to the book as well on my Facebook profile as well.
Yeah.
And the book is Unstuck: Run the Business, Don't Let It Run You.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, along those same lines, as it relates to not letting a business run you and getting clarity, what's the one action item you would challenge the audience with? Anybody listening, watching to this, if you had to kind of distill it, boil it down to one piece of advice, a challenge, an action item you'd want somebody to take from this show? Because ultimately, like, that's why I created the show, is I genuinely want to have a positive impact on people's lives and businesses. What is it you want them to draw from our entire conversation to go implement?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to setting up your business, I think a big mistake that a lot of us make is that we start off being the one doing everything, and we're going out and growing it, and running it, and administrating it. I wish I would have had the business knowledge earlier to set the thing up to where it was running and doing all those things without me.
Yeah.
So you as the entrepreneur, I believe your job as an entrepreneur is to not have a job, meaning other people or other systems or other technology are doing the things that are required to make your business run every day without you having to be there reviewing anything or checking off on anything or giving the thumbs up before anything is done. So the business should run without you. It's a hard process. There are 5 ways you can, kind of start doing that I give away for free on the website to kind of help people with that. 5 ways you can go from being a stuck entrepreneur to being an unstuck entrepreneur.
Yeah. Awesome, brother. Awesome. Well, hey, man, it's been great to have you on the show. I'm really glad we've connected. I look forward to building a relationship with you and potentially working on some storage stuff together. So yeah, man, I thank you again. I think you're an inspiration for a lot of people that listen and are going to watch this, and you're going to help a lot of people, man. So keep doing your thing. And guys, thank you for supporting the show. Whether you've been supporting for years or you just discovered the podcast, we recently crossed over the 8-year anniversary of the show and over 750 episodes, which still blows me away that I'm doing this 8 years after I started it, man. So it's been a blessing in so many ways. I'm grateful for the platform God's given me, and that's because of you guys. So share this show with anybody that you think could benefit. Tag us on social media. Let us know. And if you could give the show a rating and review, that'd be just awesome if you could take the time to do that. So guys, thank you so much. This is Alex Pardo. We're going to sign off, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Take care. One last thing before you go. If you have been listening to the show for a while or you have been getting value from the show, I would be 100% honored if you would share this show with a friend, or maybe share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this. It's my mission, it's my cause, it's my purpose through Flip Empire to impact and touch people's lives, to help people and in their businesses. So it would be an honor if you would be willing to share this episode. And one last thing, make sure that you're subscribed so that you get notified every Monday and Thursday when shows get released. I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Until then, have a great day.